Yes, hi folks, welcome back to part two here. We get disconnected there on the last one. So we'll just pick it up where we left off. Donny, we were talking about before we left off about how Tottenham and Chelsea played. We were saying Tottenham were very smart in how they attacked Chelsea with the way they drew out their two defensive midfielders. Carry on what we were saying there, mate.
Yeah, so basically what they did, obviously, Tottenham now seem to have come along with their system, the way they want to play at 3-4-3. But for me, against Chelsea, it was more of a 3-4-1-1-1. So what they did, they said to their two fullbacks, Rose and Walker, they said, right, you play as high as you want. And what they knew then was that even when they were playing really high and they thought, okay, well, Moses and Alonso might get in behind them, what happened was the two centre backs of the three, but in the wide area, they went out. And then when Yama dropped in, so they still had that defensive four, which we'd been talking about before. Now, what happened was then with Tottenham, when they had the turnover and got the ball back, it meant that Walker and Rose in particular were already ahead of Moses and Alonso. So therefore, it meant that Matic got dragged out of an area. Then Eriksen was very clever, very cute about it. He just went and stood in the spot that had been vacated by Matic. Walker got the ball for both goals, played the ball back to Eriksen, and then got the ball into the box for Dele Alli. So it was fantastic. And everybody goes on about the squads, the top six squads in the Premier League. And I said at the start of the season, I still stand by it now, that the difference this season is going to be the managers, the little tactical tweaks. So you look at Jurgen Klopp when they played against Manchester City a few weeks, I think it was on New Year's Eve. They went about it. Everybody, including Guardiola, expected Liverpool to play a high press. They didn't do it. Liverpool ended up with 43% possession, allowed Manchester City to have the ball, and it took them by surprise. Manchester City won the game. Liverpool won the game 1-0. What Tottenham did to Chelsea, what Chelsea have done through Conte, the way that he's changed the system. So for me, it's the little tactical tweaks that will separate the top six teams, not the players. And I think when we over the last few months, we've heard people saying Guardiola isn't the manager that everybody thinks that he is. We talk about Mourinho's lost his magic. It's a load of rubbish. The difference is now is that these two managers in particular are in a league which arguably has 5 or 6 of the best managers in world football. So therefore, whereas Mourinho and Guardiola in previous seasons were the tactical top men, they're now being challenged by the likes of Klopp, by the likes of Conte, by the Latino, and Arsene Wenger's obviously still there, although he's a little bit older in the way that he wants to do things. So that's the difference.
I also think people don't appreciate how difficult it is. You're coming into two teams like Manchester United, Man City, finished 4th and 5th last season, two teams that needed a lot of work. It's just not a computer game. You just don't go out and buy 4 or 5 players and then it all clicks, and then you just start beating the teams you should beat, and it all just comes together that easy. People underestimate just how difficult it is to fix a team that, and if you look at this United team, for example, from 1 to 11, very few of them have been involved in a United team that's won year after year after year after year. So there's no pedigree there anymore, and so it's very, very difficult. And City, with all the money they've spent, they've won 2 league titles where they really shouldn't have won either of them, because United threw one of them away and Liverpool threw the other one away. So for me, City have never had a season in the Premier League that they've really dominated, where you're like, do you know what? This is a Man City team that we'll remember for years. I haven't seen that from City. I haven't seen a Man City team. Same in the Champions League. They're flattered to deceive in the Champions League. Despite all the money they've spent, there's still not been a great Man City team. So Guardiola has his work cut out there. Go ahead, Danny.
I think it's much more difficult for managers now, because you go back 10 years ago, 10, 12 years ago, the majority of teams in the Premier League in particular played 4-4-2. So if you wanted a box-to-box central midfielder,
which you say is the best formation if it's done right.
Yes, correct. I do. But from a manager's point of view, because not too many of them are actually playing a 4-4-2 now, you can't just say, right, I need a right winger, let's go and look for the best right winger, let's go and look for the best left winger, let's go and look for the best centre forwards that we can. You now have to have players that are, as I've just said previously, you need to have players that are flexible, because teams will change systems. I'll give you a prime example. 4 or 5 months ago, I was doing West Brom versus Manchester City. Okay. So we get the lineups, and I'm looking at the lineups. I'm going, right, okay, that's a back three, because I think Kolarov was involved. I think Stones was involved, and Kolarov, Stones, and another.
Zabaleta?
Another.
Was it
No,
Zabaleta?
it was no, it was Kolarov, Stones,
Otamendi?
and Otamendi. So all of
Yeah.
a sudden, I've gone, right, okay, that means they're playing a three at the back because they've got three centre halves there. So I set it up as a three at the back. Game got going, and obviously being at the game, you can see it straight away. Fernandinho was playing right back. Kolarov was playing left back, and you had some. So even Tony Pulis, guaranteed, Tony Pulis will have set up as though it was a back three, because that's what it looked like. So even managers are even second guessing when the whistle for the start of the game is blown. So it becomes very difficult then, because what you're having to do now, you're having to buy players that can be interchangeable. So just buying a right winger is not good enough. Just buying a right fullback is not good enough now, or a left fullback, because fullbacks now majority of the time are given the width. Just
That's
buying
an
a centre
interesting
back.
point. Yeah, because the game changes, evolves tactically as it's happening in front of your eyes. That's true.
Exactly. So buying a centre back, it's not just all about heading and kicking it now, whichever way you want to look at it. It's, are they good at coming out with the ball at the feet? Are they open to change if I want to go to a back three? A goalkeeper. Well, we know first and foremost he needs to be good with his hands, but is he good with the ball at his feet? So managers have a more difficult job now in the transfer market, because if I said to you 10 years ago, X, Y, or Z need a left winger, you'd probably give me 4 or 5 top left wingers in the Premier League at the time. So we go back a few years, you look at your Ryan Giggs, your Lee Sharps, then a little bit later on, you had Overmars, you had Harry Kewell, out and out wingers. Now, we want wingers that can play on the opposite side. We want wingers that can come inside and join up with the centre forward. It used to be wingers get the ball, get the chalk on the feet, as they used to say, on the touchline, and get one-on-one against your fullback. Opposite fullback, back up the play. So it's very different now. So the transfer market, not only are you looking for the top class players, but you're also looking for top class players that can also be very flexible for when you need to change your system. So it's much more difficult than what managers are giving credit for than what it was 10 years ago.
Amazing, because versatility used to be something that was held against players.
Oh, it did.
Used to be something
Jack of all trades,
yeah.
master of none.
All right. Before we go, I want to ask you about Arsene Wenger. A lot of very, 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 very upset Arsenal fans.
Yeah.
I watched them against Southampton in the Cup. They were superb. Now, Southampton put out a young team. Danny Welbeck looked fantastic. Theo Walcott, of course, played exceptionally well. None of them played in the next game against Watford. Arsenal fans were very upset at the team that was picked, and very upset at the result. And they've been saying something that I've been saying for a while. I don't think Arsene Wenger will ever win the league again at Arsenal. I think Arsene Wenger is a guy stuck between two eras: the era of pre-2004, before Abramovich came in, before City had money, where you didn't have to buy the league. Now you sort of have to buy the league. And I don't think he's a guy that's particularly comfortable with going in the transfer market and competing with United, City, and Chelsea in the market. Do you think Arsenal can win the league again under Wenger?
No, I think what he does, and there's a few times which you've seen it in a few examples, that he looks after his players, but probably too much. So he pampers his players. So if you look back to the start of the season, I think the likes of Ozil and a few others, they were sat in the stand when the start of the season. I think Koscielny was another one, whereas other managers went, no, come on, you've had plenty of time now, let's get back into it.
Right.
And that's why if you look at a player like Sanchez, he's the complete opposite to that. He wants to be playing week in, week out, and you see his frustrations coming out. And I think that Arsene Wenger looked at Southampton and thought, right, okay, Danny Welbeck, he's been out for a little bit, Theo Walcott's been out for a bit, I don't want to play him again in the league, when in all reality they were probably fine to play in the league. Now, Arsene Wenger's argument to that would be that his players have a lot of muscle injuries that they pick up. It's been a known fact over recent years.
Injuries have followed him for years.
Okay, now, whereas you can pick up injuries from overplaying and overtraining, you can also pick them up from undertraining and underplaying. People don't look at that, though.
Well, let me ask you this as an ex-player. Why does Wenger have so many non-impact injuries? Because that, to me, Danny, looks very much like a training issue. As an ex-player, when you'll know the difference between how someone, you've worked for a lot of different managers. If you're working for a football club where you're getting a lot of non-impact injuries, what's going on?
I was always told from Sir Alex Ferguson to having Roy Keane as my manager, Tony Pulis, Harry Redknapp, Jim Smith, Gordon Strachan, some very, very good managers. You train how you play. Okay. Now, I would probably suggest that if you went and watched Chelsea train, if you went and watched Manchester United train, if you went and watched Liverpool train, you went and watched Tottenham train, and then you went and watched Arsenal train, you would probably think that Arsenal were training in slow motion. That's my opinion.
So they don't have the intensity in training?
Well, you cannot go from here. You can't go from here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or whatever days it is, so all of a sudden Saturday go, woomph. You cannot do that. You can't, it is impossible. So whereas people will always say, on one side, there's an argument where people will say, well, the reason he's picked up that hamstring injury or that calf injury or that thigh injury is because he's overtraining, he's overplaying, he's worn out, so therefore he's susceptible to getting more injuries. But what people never talk about is, what are the effects of undertraining? What are the effects of training not being intense? Well, the effects of training not being intense is that you can't go from there to there. It's all of a sudden like you're driving a car around and you're doing 30 miles an hour for a year. Then all of a sudden you decide, right, I'm going to open it up and I'm going to go and do 100 miles an hour. The car won't accept it. So therefore there has to be a balance. And that's where I think it is. I think it's undertraining. I don't think it's overtraining from Arsenal's point of view. And that's why we've seen on quite a few occasions substitutes coming on for Arsenal and actually having to be substituted off.
Let me ask you, did they lose Alexis Sanchez this summer? And if they do, Danny, what does it say about Arsenal as a football club? Because when you're talking about people like Atletico Madrid picking them off, who aren't, good club and all that there, but they aren't exactly a Real Madrid or a Barcelona. If you're going to lose your players to Atletico Madrid, and it looks like they want him to replace Griezmann, what does it say about Arsenal as a football club? Do we just have to say big club but can't compete?
I think if they ended up losing Sanchez to Atletico Madrid, it'd be a bonus for what's happened in recent seasons for them, because what they've done over the years is actually lost players to their domestic rivals. That's a huge issue.
But the bigger issue, Danny, they're not negotiating until he's got 16 months left on his contract, which leaves him in a terrible position. You cannot do that. Leaves him in a terrible position. You cannot do that. And then you lose one of your best players. So now what?
It's same old, then, isn't it? We can go through the list. You know, over the years, Arsene Wenger has made Manchester City stronger while making his own team weaker. He's made Manchester United stronger whilst making his own team weaker. Chelsea, he's made Chelsea weaker whilst making his own team weaker. Now, that would be a huge frustration if you're an Arsenal fan, because not only are you making your own team weaker, but you're also making a domestic rival stronger. And Sanchez is a player that wants to believe that, well, not wants to believe, but is a player that wants to win things. You see his determination. You saw him after Giroud scored the equaliser against Bournemouth. You know, he's celebrating like they've just won, and all of a sudden you see Sanchez in the background. He's trying to get the ball back and demanding everybody get back to the halfway line. That's a winner. You know, I know it's a completely different situation. Wayne Rooney scores the goal that beats Sir Bobby Charlton's record. He doesn't celebrate his goal. It was an equaliser in the last minute. He's telling his players, he's demanding his players, get the ball back, get back to the halfway line. We want to try and win this game. That's the difference. Now, the players at Arsenal, they're all fantastic players, all, you know, real world-class players that sometimes I've played against some of them and they just mesmerise you with the skills. There's no question about that. So what I'm not doing, I'm not questioning the ability of the players, but what you do, you question the mentality of the players. And that is something, unfortunately, for Arsenal, that it seems to be season after season. Everybody goes, okay, yeah, they finished top four again. But for a club like Arsenal, for the stature of Arsenal, for the fan base they have, for everything that they have, that shouldn't be acceptable. And
but Danny, the finish at fourth starts at the top all the way into the bottom of that football club. Every year, Arsenal start off the season, if we finish top four, we're okay. That objective runs all the way throughout that football club. And,
of course it does. And that's the problem.
So the question then is, the next question, logical question, to Wenger can't win the league. can somebody come in and win the league with the model of that football club being, we will never compete with an Arsenal or a Chelsea or compete with a Chelsea, United or City in the market. And we're not going to pay those types of wages. We're not going to pay those types of transfer fees. And as long as we finish top four, we're happy. Can anybody come in and win the league with that model?
Well, you've just said, are Arsenal overly bothered about winning the title? I think that's a question that you'd have to ask.
Yeah.
Like you say, I don't think they are. Now,
if most expensive ticket in the league, Danny, £100 to get into the Emirates.
Yeah, but if you look at, listen, I'm the first one to say I think Arsene Wenger, I think he's been unbelievable. Mm-hmm. He reinvented the Premier League when he came into it. The things he did, the methods he did, the plays that he brought in, and the attractive football they played, the Invincibles and things like that. But that's all history. If we look at Arsene Wenger over, say, the last 6 years, okay? Mm-hmm. If he was manager of Chelsea, if he was manager of Manchester United, Manchester City, Liverpool, Tottenham, would he still be there?
No, of course not.
So therefore, it tells you that Arsenal's most important thing is not to win the Premier League. The most important thing is to remain competitive, staying in the top four. Now, I may be wrong. I know Tottenham have done it a few times, but I couldn't see Liverpool even now selling to a main competitor. I couldn't see Chelsea selling to a main competitor, or Manchester United or Manchester City. But could I see Sanchez going to another team in the Premier League? 100%. Could I see Ozil going to another team in the Premier League? 100%.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be allowed. That wouldn't be allowed at other Premier League clubs. But the difference is, I don't think the issue with Arsenal is, well, we're making the other team that are our rivals stronger. I don't think that's their issue. I think their issue is, okay, we can sell to the rivals, but will it still mean we're finishing the top four? And if the answer is yes, then I don't think that's a problem. That's the big problem. So therefore, everybody goes on about Arsenal. Arsene Wenger needs to bring in Diego Simeone. Do you think Diego Simeone would put up with that? Well, absolutely no chance.
Which then, Danny, is Arsene Wenger being unfairly judged and criticized, given that anybody in that situation is going to struggle? And when you look at what, I also think Arsenal are going to be spooked by what happened with David Moyes coming into United, who prior to that finishing outside the top four was unthinkable for Manchester United. Mm-hmm. Do they look at that and go, we replaced Wenger here. There's no guarantee his team finishes in the top four, and maybe given the resources of Wenger's deprived of, he's actually overachieving?
Arsene Wenger will decide when he leaves the football club, though. That's the difference.
Yeah, I agree. They're not going to sack him. There's no way.
That for me is the big difference, and he will decide when he goes. But for me, at the moment, if we look at, there is no way that as a top 16, now Tottenham are new to this. Tottenham is quite new for them. So when I talk about them being a selling club, it was previous to being top four teams more often than not. Mm-hmm. But if we look at the realistic top four teams of recent years, so you talk about your Manchester Cities, you talk about your Arsenals, your Chelseas, your Manchester Uniteds, and Liverpool more now to a certain extent. 4 of them 5 teams would never dream of selling a player to a domestic rival, no matter how much. It just would not be a done thing. Whereas I think Arsenal, they are, okay, well, you know what? If we can get X amount of money for him, then we will do it. Mm-hmm. That's the difference. So you have to ask yourself, okay, like you've just said, Arsene Wenger, he gets a lot of criticism. What is his fulfillment every season? Is it to finish in the top 4? Manchester United's fulfillment under Mourinho will probably be to finish top 4 this season, but then next season you need to be looking at winning the Premier League. Jurgen Klopp, when he first came to Liverpool, challenged for the Premier League. Conte challenged for the Premier League. Guardiola challenged for the Premier League, as well as being successful in Europe, or at least being a major player in Europe. For Arsenal, I don't think it's that year after year. But this season could be very interesting, because this season Arsenal could finish outside the top 4. Then we wait to see what the response is then.
Yeah, I mean, since 2004, Wenger's won 2 FA Cups. That's it. Louis van Gaal won 1. And it wasn't enough to keep his job. So I agree with you. The standards are completely different. I even think if Van Gaal had a scraped top 4, he still would have gone. I think that the standard of football just wasn't
amenable to United. Exactly.
I think
definitely. that was the issue. We know with Arsenal, we know that when they're at their scintillating best, they are such a wonderful team to watch.
Yeah.
But as we've said before, football is a results-driven business. And if a results-driven business from Arsenal's point of view is finishing in the top four, then you've got to say Arsene Wenger wins the league every year because they finish in the top four.
Yeah, but I think Arsenal fans, their gratitude for what he's done for them is coming to an end, Danny. And but just from what I see, the dissent is definitely an issue amongst the fans, and I think they were hoping for 1 or 2 signings in January. But anyway, mate, as always, thank you so much for joining me. Brilliant, superb, great
likewise.
info.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah, apologies about Monday. So glad we could get it sorted.
No problem.
And I will catch up with you next week, mate. Danny, all the best, mate.
Brilliant.
Thanks, folks, for watching.
Take care, mate.
Cheers, folks. Bye.
Bye-bye.